struggles that those emancipated slaves faced back then still mirror the struggles that Black people in America face today. I think it's funny how we say history repeats itself, and it still continues to.
You know what's interesting to me? We don't know about Juneteenth. You see, we're grown like this. We barely know about Juneteenth.
Yeah,
we have to go and read about it.
Oh, yeah.
Welcome back, my people, our Tribespeople, to another episode of the Jolamista Madi.
We back.
The boys are back, and today we have a special guest.
Yes, sir.
Hello, special guest.
Hi, how are you?
Doing well. How are you?
Good.
Can you please tell the people who you are?
Yes, so my name is Ramata Franklin. I am from California and also Mali. I'm Malian American, and I just got here.
She just got here.
She just got here.
One of Cool's bombs for Ramata.
Yes, sir.
Welcome back, my people. Today is a special day because it's the day before Juneteenth. And we have a lot to talk about regarding that.
Juneteenth, yes, sir.
We'll get to that. Number one, sorry for the hiatus. In the grand scheme of things, it wasn't that bad.
No.
It's not as bad as we've been in the past.
We had to let our
really?
last episode simmer.
Yeah.
It was spirituality and religion too.
Heavier one,
People really needed to,
to sit with
to
that.
see Ivan and I's, conversation there and the journey.
Makes sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But we're back.
Yes, sir.
And for those of you who don't know who we are, we're two African millennials here in the diaspora, canoeing through this thing called life and giving you our perspective on all things African. We're edutaining you on food, culture, music, politics, whatever it may be.
Histoire.
We're here to do that.
We haven't hit food yet, though. We've been slacking on the food.
We did in earlier seasons we did, but
we debunked the jollof rice.
Oh.
yeah.
We talked about.
So what was the outcome? I didn't see that episode.
Well, it was just to highlight that jollof rice is where it originates from, who are the originators, and who are the plagiarizers in the game.
Because there are some plagiarizers. We won't
crazy.
say anything else.
We won't say anything else.
Yeah.
We won't. Now, getting to our guest of honor, Ramata.
That's a nice guest of honor.
You exist between two worlds. Really the same, but different histories, right? If you go back close enough, but if you go back far enough, we're one and the same.
Yep.
Tell us where you're from. Like you said, California and Mali, right? Those are two very distinct places on Earth. Tell us more.
Okay,
Who
sure.
or where are you really, really from? Who are you and what is your heritage?
So it's interesting to say like where am I really from? But I mean, I was born and raised in the U.S., in California, in like Pasadena, shout out Altadena. But yes, I was born and raised there. But then my mom is from Mali, from West Africa. So since I was young, I've been always traveling to Mali. So thank God that I had the blessing to be able to go often. And I think that really shaped my like identity, who I am, the type of things that I take pride in. So I'm very, very proud about my cultural heritage, even though I was born and raised in the U.S. Like I can speak Bambara quite well. I think so. And like I can cook the foods pretty well. And like I'm very, very close with the heritage and the culture.
Nice.
It's interesting because like a lot of people are like, oh, how did your mom do it? Because some people, they're born and raised here, both parents from, like someplace else, immigrants, but then they don't really speak the language. They're kind of disconnected from their home country. But like my mom does not speak English to me or my brother. Like even if she speaks English to us, it's like a joke. But she speaks English perfectly fine. Like she has her job, she works. Like she's.
But you guys only speak Bambara?
My mom only speaks Bambara to me and my brother, but I always respond in English. Sometimes, when we want to get
very first gen,
when we want to get a little bit more serious, we respond in Bambara, especially now that we're older. But yeah, no, only Bambara. So it helped me.
Does your mom speak French as well?
Yeah, French.
Okay.
So I also learned French because just hearing it. So like French and Bambara and English. But yeah.
Okay. That's what's up.
It sounds like from Henga, she is very proud of both her Malian heritage and your American.
Yeah, definitely.
What do we call it? American heritage as well? Or
no, I always say
that
my dad is Black American.
Black American.
Yeah, African American. It's a mouthful. It takes a lot to say. I'll just be like, yeah, my dad's Black American. And then my mom is from Mali. So it's almost like I'm truly Malian American, truly African American in this sense. But yeah.
I always
Interesting
get,
mix.
like with that, to your point, is African American, Black American. The progression of the name of how we call this demographic, right?
Yeah.
So
It's interesting.
I think it's also layered, but people don't like to recognize it for that. You know, people like to be distinct when it's actually very layered.
Yeah.
And not, you know, that simple of an identity.
Yeah.
Right.
It's interesting because even like the term African, like some people prefer African American, some people prefer Black American.
Yeah.
Some people don't even want to have the American tied to the name.
Just American sometimes.
Yeah, and also some just American. So it really just depends. And honestly, I don't really understand all the dynamics going on there. And I feel like it's quite subjective. It depends on who you are and how you see things. Also your family, your heritage, your experience. For me, Black American sounds cool. It sounds easy to say. I understand African American. But then I think it also has to do with like reclaiming identity, like reappropriating you know, something that was taken from you, that was forced on you or imposed on you. So it's a little bit of like resistance in what you choose to call yourself or identify yourself as, I think.
Shout out Dr. Umar.
Oh.
Yeah. Shout out him. What does he call it? I like how he says American Africans. Is that how he calls
He
it?
just says Africans.
He said Africans?
Yeah, my fellow. Does he say African?
He just says Africans.
Okay.
Yeah.
He separates
doesn't play with
though
that.
African American. He separates the two. He says either they're just Africans living in America or...
Exactly,
Yes.
that's what he says.
He separates it.
Yeah.
But
getting a little further into the discussion here.
yes.
It is the day before Juneteenth. At least
Juneteenth.
when we're recording.
Yes. Tomorrow's Juneteenth.
My head is exploding with knowledge from what I learned recently about Juneteenth. And I can't wait to talk to you guys about it.
Let's
But
go.
I'm
let's
ready
watch the
lately.
video that we had pulled up here.
You know, obviously, I'll be the first to admit Juneteenth is still something I need a lot more education on and a perspective. I heard about it, but have I really took the time to understand the history behind it? Obviously, no. So I guess to start off with, we'll play a video for if anyone doesn't even know about Juneteenth, a quick summary on at least to give perspective.
Okay.
Let's hear it.
I mean, if we want to honor the end of slavery, then we should celebrate Juneteenth.
Wait, that's what Juneteenth is.
Juneteenth has only been recently recognized as an official holiday, but it's actually the longest-running African-American holiday celebrating the Emancipation Proclamation. Here's how this once local holiday has become one that is now recognized from coast to coast. June 19th, commonly known as Juneteenth and formerly known as Emancipation Day or Jubilee Day, marks the day that federal troops arrived in Galveston, Texas in 1865, taking control of the state and freeing all enslaved people. The Emancipation Proclamation was issued on January 1st, 1863, which was said to be the day all enslaved Africans in Confederate states were to be set free. In reality, it didn't end completely. In fact, there were still enslaved people in states like Kentucky and Delaware, as well as in Texas, where there wasn't much military presence, so slavery continued. It wasn't until troops arrived in Galveston on June 19, 1865, that 250,000 people were freed. Juneteenth reached new heights in 1872, when a group of black ministers and businessmen established Emancipation Park in Houston, Texas. So now, 160 years later, the story of Juneteenth is still spreading. Today, Juneteenth is celebrated everywhere through family cookouts, parades, festivals, with residents, local businesses, and more. Texas was the first state to recognize Juneteenth as an official holiday in 1980. Since then, at least 45 states and the District of Columbia have moved to officially recognize the day as well. In 2020, following the death of George Floyd, lawmakers reintroduced a bill to make Juneteenth a federal holiday.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you like this video, check out...
Shout out. There we go. Shout out.
Yeah.
So, starting with that brief history, right? I think it's easy for us to just be like, oh, yeah, that's the day that the last slaves were freed.
Yeah.
When I tell you the history or the struggles that those emancipated slaves faced back then still mirror the struggles that black people in America face today. I think it's funny how we say history repeats itself and it still continues to, right? I'm gonna talk about Jackie Yates. Jackie Yates was He was actually born, I think, in West Virginia, and Houston, Texas has some of the richest history, but people don't know that. So if you've ever been there and you know the neighborhoods around it, and you've actually been to like Emancipation Park and stuff, it's really rich history there. I always tell I love the South because, like, number one, I think Black people are happier there despite its past.
That's interesting.
That's an interesting take.
It's an interesting take, but I think there's strength in numbers. You know, like if you come out, the East Coast is lit, but it just feels like it's like that New York energy. Everybody's on edge. That is
a really interesting take. Yeah.
The West Coast, you come out to Seattle, it's the Seattle freeze, right? Yeah. Every time I've been to the South, it's just like oozing with love every time like I see somebody. Now, Jack Yates became one of the biggest, and this is my unsung hero of the day. There's actually a high school named after him, Yates High School in the 3rd Ward in Houston, Texas. He became one of the biggest landowners in Houston and was actually integral into propelling a lot of Black people in Houston into wealth. Because think about it, when you were now emancipated, it's not like you can just go out and buy land and just start practicing business.
It was a huge humanitarian crisis.
A huge humanitarian crisis. But my unsung hero of the day is Jack Yates. Because, and fun fact about him, he was married to an enslaved woman. He was a free man. This was, I think, in West Virginia. Don't quote me on this. Her owner moved them to Texas. And he actually went back into slavery so that he could be with his family.
That's wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And, you know, through that, still established himself in the community, built a lot of amazing things in Houston, Texas, and allowed Black people to become landowners and just overall start the prosperity of the community. But those same issues that Black people faced back then, a lot of them are still facing today. So my unsung hero of today is Jack Yates. Check him out. Go look up the history.
Yeah, I definitely will.
Yates High School has a number of prominent people that went there as well. So shout out Houston, Texas, man. The history's rich.
A lot of history.
I need to visit the South.
Yeah,
I'd like to, because I appreciate that take. Because if you think about it, even what's that, like Southern like hospitality and honestly, that very communal approach to life, like, and everyone is kind of sticking together and working together, is more family oriented. You don't see that across the U.S. And maybe it used to be like that amongst a lot of like Black and brown communities, but it's not as much anymore. And in my opinion, and I think there's a certain parallel, or there's a certain similarity with how the Southern hospitality is, and also like how things are in like West Africa, for instance, because that's my experience, that's my understanding. Even when I went to East Africa, like in Uganda, it was similar. Like the same type of, we care for each other to a great extent. You also see that in like the traditional Southern like spaces, or places that are more family oriented or more community driven. And I think that's kind of withered away a little. It's kind of faded away a little bit throughout time, and it's concentrated more in places like this. And I think you said, like, what is it? There's strength in numbers. Maybe that's a reason for it. I don't know, but.
Well, to the strength in numbers part, have you guys seen the map of Black population in the U.S.?
I can imagine what it looks like.
Like 95% skewed towards the southeast, right?
Yeah.
So, like, most of the Black population in the U.S. lives in the South.
Yeah.
They are in the South. Like West Coast, PNW, New York, it's just small pockets. But like, I remember seeing it. It was really alarming. If you look go through the Texas all the way to Florida, maybe up to South Carolina, that's where the Black population or African American population is largely concentrated in the U.S.
Yeah.
So.
It makes sense. It's very deep history. It's like that's where people were brought.
That's where they were brought. That's where
their families are there. They've established themselves there. They stayed there.
And that becomes, it is their home, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is what I'm getting at, is it reminds me of home. Like when I go back home, that hospitality runs deep.
It's very true.
It's very deep, and it doesn't matter if I'm in Houston, if I'm in Dallas, if I'm in Atlanta, and like the rest of the South, you just feel like you're with your people.
Interesting.
And you know, you know me, I love all my black people, but if I'm here in Seattle, somehow there's like a disconnection that we experience as black people, you know, until you find your community.
Definitely, yeah.
Until you find your community, there's a disconnect. And in the South, it's just like they don't need to know who you are, but you're one of us, you know? And so that's why I like the South like a lot.
Okay.
And after like reading up on the history of just emancipation in Houston and Juneteenth and the relevance of it, like, I mean, we all knew the relevance of Juneteenth, but once you start...
I didn't. We all knew the relevance.
I'm saying like in these... Ever since it's been popularized, right?
Yeah.
Hey, we've all known
federal
something.
holiday after the 2020,
Right.
largely due to the George Floyd
Yeah.
movement when Joe Biden made it a federal holiday. But
Fun fact, George Floyd went to Yates High School.
he did?
Really? You
Wow.
see? So interesting.
The South is...
I mean, that's HBCUs are
HBCUs.
predominantly in the South. There's just so much history there.
Yeah.
You know, I could at least, from a bird's eye view, or see it from my older siblings who all went to HBCUs and been around, at least in pockets there, to really see it is deep history, very deep history. So, yeah, I'm just glad that something like that, Juneteenth, is something that became not only a federal holiday, but it all gives us a chance to educate and understand the plight of black people or Africans who were brought here, our ancestors who came here and what they made of themselves.
Yeah. You guys know that there's been a number of African leaders that were educated at HBCUs, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So that's how deep that history goes.
Yeah.
Is that pipeline is very strong.
HBCUs were critical.
Very
like
strong.
for even Africans. You know, my dad, he went to HBCU as
Really?
an African student in the 70s.
Oh yeah, he in DC,
Ross College. This is in Mississippi.
Mississippi. I thought he went to Howard for some reason.
Then after, for postgrad.
Oh, okay.
He went to DC after, but he went to
HBCU
Ross College. So
Yeah.
HBCUs were educating young African students.
Of course. Yeah.
And some went back and became leaders. Well, a lot of them became leaders, right? So that's a big part we overlook in us. Even as Africans, we come here, we see Black History Month, we see Juneteenth, a lot of these holidays, MLK Day, and we kind of just like, okay, we don't take proaction, we don't really actively participate, but we do have to, because if we even look at our own countries, some of our own leaders, a lot of our own parents' generations, the opportunities they had to gain an education, it was through HBCUs, the funding they provided. So,
Yeah. But I think it's interesting. I think either way, whether like, for instance, Juneteenth is a celebration of people being free, like freedom. Freedom Day is another, I think, term for it.
Or Jubilee Day.
Yeah, Jubilee Day. So like, you enjoy not being oppressed anymore. And I feel like this type of celebration is transnational. Like this type of celebration is understood, especially amongst Black individuals, is understood across nations, across countries. So it's like, even if Juneteenth is something recognized very American in terms of the history, it's still something that you can understand as like an African individual living here, African immigrant who's not necessarily familiar, or like they're familiar with the experience of the Black American here, but you can take it, you can recognize it and still enjoy, I guess, the essence of it, the beauty of it, because either way, that's all it is. It's like taking pride in the fact that we've gained a certain level of freedom. But you know what's interesting to me? We don't know about Juneteenth. You see, we're growing like this. We barely know about Juneteenth.
Yeah,
we have to go and
exactly.
read about it.
Oh, yeah.
Me growing up, they will never teach you about Juneteenth in school.
So
at least my
growing
school.
up, did you learn about Juneteenth growing up in
No,
California
in
education
California,
system?
right?
No.
Yeah.
I didn't learn about Juneteenth. It just, if there's this one-off teacher who wants to teach about these kind of things, but no, I didn't learn about Juneteenth until later on.
All we learned about was what MLK.
MLK.
Not even Malcolm X like that.
Rosa Parks.
It
And very
was
small
always
little anecdotes. They make it seem like a small little, easy things for the kids to digest. They don't get
right.
into what
Yeah,
it really
Black
is.
American history started with MLK for us back home in Africa. That's all we had.
I mean, I
Yeah.
don't know. It's not enough though.
And they'll never mention the Black Panther Party.
And that's-
They'll never
You
mention.
see, and those are the very valuable things that, in fact, empower young people. Because for me, I really started to learn about those things like in college. I took this one class. It was like urbanization of like gangs, And that was like, I think honestly, that's the class that I've learned the most in all of my like higher education thing. Because I studied public health, but for some reason, every type of thing I learned from that class, which ironically was taught by like a white American man, it's like those are the things that I could translate easily into real life. Because like, it was just interesting how you go into the history to understand how like at the end of the day, people are the way they are because of their environment, and they adapt to their environment. They adapt to their experience as the best as they can. And you can't really see them and assume something, or you can't really look at them and think, oh, they're living this type of life. It's just it was interesting to know how like California and gangs came about, but it came out of like fighting oppression.
Revolutionary.
It was resistance towards a shared enemy.
Protecting the community.
That's all it was, you know?
Did you guys ever learn about Black Wall Street?
Not
that
really.
got burned down?
Yeah.
Where was it? What state was it? I learned about the story of a thriving city economically was it in the Midwest? Or
I think it was Tennessee. Don't
Tennessee,
quote me.
Arkansas?
I think
One
it
of
was
those.
Tennessee. Don't
Somewhere
quote
there.
me.
And then was it the KKK that burned it down, or was it just...
It was. I mean, I'm sure the KKK was involved,
But it
was
got burned
just
down and destroyed, right?
white people
the
came
thriving
and burned it down.
city or economy in, that was named Black Wall Street. And then they...
But don't you see, it's always the same thing. Whenever
It's recent history too. Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's always the same wherever you are in the world. I think that like anti-Blackness and racism, it is a global issue. So wherever you are, you see Black people, brown people, racialized subjects coming together and finding power together. There's going to be someone trying to like destabilize that. Someone tried to break it down. Like it's always the same.
And I mean, that's the whole premise of the KKK, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And other groups like them.
They saw Black people starting to thrive, and they said, we must put a stop
Like
to
it's
this.
a threat. It's
right?
a threat to see Black people enjoying like Black joy, resistance. Even this type of Juneteenth. It's a threat to a lot of people. Like a lot of people will even in their own spaces like, oh, why do we have this day off? Like it's June. Like they won't even take into account the what it really means.
The relevance.
Yeah, because it doesn't concern them. It's very, I don't know. It's interesting because people don't really care about it. It's just like it's another day off.
It's just another day off.
Yeah, and I was looking at this TikTok and this girl was like, okay, Juneteenth is cool and all, but like now it's like white people also have the day off, which I'm not saying they shouldn't have the day off, but it's like an interesting kind of take where it's like, this is a day specific for a certain group given the oppression of the group by certain people, but then everyone is enjoying. It's kind of like we're always in America,
I think there should be a corporate responsibility to educate on Juneteenth.
I agree. And I
whose
don't think
responsibility is it though?
As far as what?
The education.
I'm saying in corporations.
But then if you think about it, who's going to do that educating in the corporations? It's going to be the Black people.
Right.
It is, and that's what we just did with our EIG
But isn't that
at work.
exhausting, Anzo?
It is. However, I think if you standardize it across corporations, where it's like, look, just like we take or implicit bias training, let's incorporate like Juneteenth and the history of it into the workplace,
But
or at least into the education
it's a checkbox,
system.
Anzo. I think the corporate America is fundamentally flawed a lot of times towards that diversity and inclusion.
Oh yeah,
the education of Black American or African history,
even the
they
experience
look at
of
the Black employees to do it. It's not my job. Like if I'm in a team, I don't want to be making PowerPoints on Juneteenth.
Trust
or
me,
I don't want to be the one.
We're all in the same boat.
The majority that you should care about this. This is important. Get pizza and ask good questions and then move on.
Yeah, like, the time
is it
off
my
meetings.
job?
But if you honestly think about it, corporate America, they will never take on the true responsibility of trying to in any way decolonize anything. For instance, because corporate America, capitalism, white patriarchy, racism, it's like a trinity. They work together.
Yes.
They cannot live without the other.
No.
Like they need to work together.
Yeah.
The only way that each system can survive is to make sure that they're all okay. They're never going to put the efforts to try to destabilize one. For them to teach Juneteenth, that's just for them to do free pizza.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
It's a checkbox.
Can I tell you,
free lunch.
like, we had a whole screening of a documentary, 50 minutes, that's all it was, right? I think maybe like 25, if that, people showed up. We had a party later on, the Thirsty Thursdays. Can I tell you the line was out the door for the food?
That free food is not a joke.
No,
People are going to come
seriously
for
though.
that.
The food was gone, like no plate left. There was all the drinks were drank.
And it's good to raise awareness. Like, I'm not saying not put the effort to try to share with people, but then also, if you really think about it, how sustainable is it? How far does it go to try to then teach
Why
people
us
in the
though?
corporate space? No, me. I don't know who's gonna do it. I don't know who's doing it, but also even I don't know. When you think about it, it should have been done. But the thing is, every system,
Look, I think
every
that-
institution is
What happened in
based
2020, Anzo?
anti-black.
Right, but I mean, if you think about it now, we still
That was
have
a different
like
world, different time. 2020.
No, but then all of a sudden, it's like, what
It's-
have you guys been doing? It revealed
it's
everything.
Revealed everything. However, it's now like standardized that most places have like implicit bias training. However useless it is,
It's all little by little. too.
Microaggressions.
we're still working on those. right?
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying about the history of this country and the history of Juneteenth and the impact of it, right? I'm just saying it's not, you can see it as a checkbox and that's fine, but it's like the mustard seed phenomenon, right?
Well, it's
You
all
plant
little
your
by
seed
little,
and
yeah.
we got to start somewhere. I'm not
I
saying it's
agree.
even on us.
No,
like
me, I
I'm
truly
holding them
agree.
accountable, you know?
I feel like I'm just playing devil's advocate. I agree with you because
Yeah.
it's like you have to start from somewhere. But then also, let's look at the bigger institutional, like the essence of the institution itself. Institutions, they're self-serving. They work for themselves. They work so that they can stay at the top. They can be okay. They're not worried about people, especially a profit-driven institution. It's for the profit. They could
Trust
care
me.
less about
Of
who's
course,
bringing
they
the
don't.
profit.
Yeah, like.
Corporate America, that capitalism, they need
But I mean,
racism
it's
to be-
business. They're there for the interest of
Yeah,
the shareholders.
businesses
And
do.
like, at the end of the day.
100%.
And the people don't realize that these
We have
systems
to
of
re-
oppression
yes.
are necessary for the business to stay booming.
But guys, let me play devil's advocate one more time.
Yeah.
We also have more black billionaires than we ever have, or millionaires than we ever have today, right? So we are reaping something from what we've sown,
Black
or our
billionaires-
ancestors have sown. Not billionaires, millionaires.
Okay, but are we really seeing massive change in the black communities as a result?
That's a different discussion.
Are you sure they're not connected?
They are connected,
yeah.
but you can't compartmentalize or you can't lump them together when it's like, yeah,
Why
we're
not?
all for overall prosperity, but we all know it's more
Prosperity of
complex.
how many percent that?
See, this is what I'm saying. It's easy
Because
to like now.
the wealth they amassed as these billionaires, right? Where does it typically end up to?
I get that.
It's going into the European brands. It's going into maybe a Mercedes.
Can I-
going
can I
into
use
maybe a
even-
Patek
can I
Philippe.
use
It
even-
does not go back to our community
Can I
at a
use
large part.
Can I use even Seattle as an example?
Go ahead.
Let's take a look. Let's
course.
take an example, right? Just the entertainment space, right? How many different nationalities do we have represented in there, right? Where we're going to black establishments constantly, whether it's Jamaican, whether it's black owned, whether it's Kenyan owned, right? Those dollars are all coming back. And then you're going to take your money and go to a black hairstylist. You're going to take your money and go to a black barber. We're all going to go probably to DJ's Kitchen in Linwood
Yes.
occasionally. We're
Yes.
going to go to the Gambian market, right? We're going to go to the Nigerian restaurant. And so I'm just saying that these and even the South is like a perfect like representation of that, right? It's incremental. I'm not saying
So
I'm
it
happy
doesn't-
with the
it works
speed.
well, but not for the
I'm not
super
happy with the
wealthy,
speed.
not for the millionaires. Then, like the concept you're showing is functional with us, right?
Right.
But now let's look at the black millionaire, multi-millionaire. Is that money still circulating within the black community?
I mean, to an extent,
It depends on us.
Let's
It
talk
depends
about.
on the
Let's talk
millionaire.
about now. Let's talk about. I know you guys are gonna combat this, but Rihanna, for example,
do you know we're gonna combat it?
who
Let's
supported?
hear.
Who is Rihanna's biggest market?
Black women.
Right. Sure, Rihanna's dollars are going elsewhere. Like I'm sure she has 1,000 million. I don't know how many shareholders that are not black. Right. That being said, I'm just saying that is the perfect representation of how I don't even believe in billionaires myself. Like I feel like there's too much. There's a amount of too much money.
Yeah, like
But that's the model I'm talking about. Is like we didn't have that 50 years ago. And so
100%. The
it's
progression as
incremental.
people
The progression
that we've made is you can damn near exponential to in a short amount of time to have black billionaires
You see what I'm saying?
in this world and multi-millionaires.
I'm just saying we're going somewhere. I'm being optimistic.
We're going
about
somewhere,
it.
or individuals are going somewhere.
I think I agree with that thing of we. But you know, the thing is, it's good to do this thing of like playing devil's advocate because everything is so complex. Things are very unique. But also, if you think about it, of course we're going somewhere. We're going to always evolve. We're going to keep going. There's no way for us to go back. Even if the people say, oh, we're going back, we're not going back. We're always small going ahead. But then you have to think about what are the implications of having 5 like black billionaires who then use their money for their own, you know, they increase their wealth for themselves and they separate themselves from the
But that's individualistic.
Yeah,
Right,
and that comes from...
That's them going somewhere.
But if you think about that, I don't know, maybe... when you're in the corporate capitalist environment and you're making money in the capitalist terms, you also then take on the tendencies that work well with capitalism, as in individualism, as in everyone to each their own. As you pick up your bootstraps and you figure it out, that type of thing. Like it makes sense that this is the type of thing you take on when you reach into a certain threshold of
tax bracket.
It's not easy though.
Unfortunately. So it's like, who's being resistant towards that? Some people are, though. Some people really are.
This is the running joke with black athletes, right?
I mean, Dr. Umar preaches about it all the time. But again, I guess we're playing a lot of devil's advocate here.
That's how we do.
I'm just trying to be an optimist.
But I'm not. Here's the deal, though. You really have to try and be really intentional. No matter whether you're a black millionaire or, you know, if you have spending power, especially living in America.
Spending power.
You have to be really intentional and aware about where you spend and put your money.
As an individual, no matter how much you have. Yeah,
if you just laissez-faire, just go off with daily life and not be making proactive effort into thinking, where am I spending my dollar every day? It is not going back. 80% plus will not be going back to the black community.
Sure, yeah.
Just in like natural...
It's
way
even hard
this country
to do
is set
that.
up system-wise.
It's even hard to do that.
It's
to
of
only
course
buy
right now.
black.
Yeah, it's hard
Yeah.
To keep the black dollars in the black
But that's
community.
what I'm saying.
Even
It's hard because
It's
the way
hard,
the
yeah.
system is set
They
up.
make it so it's hard to.
Our billionaires, millionaires, constantly every day thinking investments I make, where I use my spending power every day. Are they thinking first, is my money going back to the black community? Not take away billionaires or billionaire. Are we doing that every day? Every day the money I spend, right?
Yeah.
Am I being conscious
It's
in
not
saying
feasible
that?
though.
It's not feasible.
It's
Because
not.
we're not the majority.
Yeah.
So it's not feasible. But it's still a step in the right direction.
It definitely is.
Right?
But there has to be some sort of acknowledgement and willingness, if the option is there, to spend where available, right? Because at the end of the day, let's say things you want, right? People want quality. Let's say if it's products,
Yeah.
or they have their own preferences. Maybe there is not a black-owned version of that.
Right.
So
And
where you gonna,
you also got to think about the barriers to entry, right? Like I can't just, I mean, I can, but I can't just wake up tomorrow and say, oh, I'm going to dethrone Colgate as the #1 toothpaste maker in the world, right?
But I'm sure there's a black-owned toothpaste
there
company.
is. But think about their barriers to entry. Their struggles of growth, right?
Yeah.
We have to care enough, though. It has to be a collective effort of we're all some sort of mass movement towards accelerating back a Black Wall Street.
I agree.
No,
I'm saying though,
I don't know.
guys, you too, even that shirt was black made. This is black made. Like you guys yourselves don't even understand how much you support black business.
I mean, I try to, but then
You
also
try.
it
I'm
depends
saying
on.
you don't. You might be underestimating yourself how much you actually support black business.
It's true, but supporting black business, I understand that, but then also, I think it's that thing of like what's practical, what's feasible, given your context and your circumstances. Like Seattle, how much can you really do that? We suffer to find somebody to braid simple hair braiding. Like I'm new here. Why am I suffering to find somebody to braid my hair? And why are they charging $600 to braid hair? Braiding is a beautiful talent and it's coming from Africa. And I'm used to proper braids, but I will never pay $600. I can't do it. That's crazy. So I think also then our community has to be quite understanding of like what needs to be done, what doesn't need to be. Like there's ways that you do things. How can I support something that's in some ways a bit absurd? The work doesn't show the price.
The black tax.
Maybe this is me complaining, but like let's be also serious, because how can we support each other if we don't work together?
You guys see why I love the South? I'm just saying.
600?
Me and Anzo talk about this in being reasonable. I think the real
let's make
flex
things
is
make
always
sense.
when the product or the quality service is the same with anywhere else, and it doesn't feel like I'm paying an extra tax just because it's someone, you know?
And that tends to be
Then
an
we
issue.
shouldn't have biases in or compromise on, you know, either price or quality just because.
And and I'm not the only one or first person to say this, but like people complain about how they want to consistently support and buy Black and all of these things, but then sometimes the quality and the service delivered doesn't necessarily correlate with how much you're investing in, and that's an issue. That means we need to be held accountable for what we do. We have to be.
For me, a short answer to that though is number one, there's not enough competitors.
Maybe that's what it is.
Right. So it's like you're talking about paying 600. Well, I can charge 600 because I'm the only hair braider.
Go down south.
Here,
He ain't gonna be 600 because there's
That's
like how
the
many
thing.
people that can do
It's
it.
just-
And then the second thing is there's always, I blame Twitter, but like there's always like everything becomes hysterical when it's outrageous, right? So it's like, oh my God, they're charging $600. Now the whole world thinks that you have to pay $600 because one person charged that. I think that there is
doesn't make
an element of hysteria online, especially online.
But the thing is, if we want to make things feasible, practical, and actually be able to keep our Black dollars in the Black community and do things properly, that means everyone has to be on board in different ways.
Yeah.
It's not just, I have the attention to give my money here, but also then the businesses also need to understand like what makes a conducive environment for us to continue to do that. And not a lot of people think about those things. They just go and do their business. You know, I don't know. It's, you know, and I'm not saying that the other businesses that are not Black owned are, you know, not doing those things and they're better. Never. But we have to really make things make sense. Like, let's make things serious. People don't like to be serious.
Strength in numbers. That's what I'm saying.
So what does Juneteenth mean to both of you guys?
Let's start with you, Ramata. What does it mean to you?
I think kind of like what I said, just like a celebration of emancipation. Basically, like you are enjoying it's Black joy in terms of not, I guess, fighting against oppression or like not being oppressed anymore. To me, that's what I get from it. I don't know too much the history, but like to me, it's like, okay, you've been able to come out of, or you are just celebrating not having that oppressive rule so much over you. Even though it's still kind of there, it's like you're free, so you can enjoy the freedom. I don't know. I don't know, because are Black people ever free?
You feel me?
I don't know.
To me, Juneteenth is almost like you're celebrating. It's a special holiday, right? Because you're taking the history of a people, you're acknowledging the past that it's had, you're looking to the future, but you're also standing proud of who you are.
That's very beautiful.
Right.
So I'll take the same thing.
And you know, Black American ancestors are some of the most badass people that have ever lived.
Of course.
So that's what Juneteenth means to me.
Yeah.
What about you,
what's up.
Ibe?
No, I mean, Juneteenth is just another reminder or opportunity for me to learn and understand the plight of Black people that have lived in this country. Because when you come here, you quickly realize you're not African, you're Black. And you start experiencing reactions from people, the system, and you kind of don't know why you're being like this, right? And to do so, to really understand your existence as a Black man in America, you have to directly look at the experiences of Black men who have been here since they stepped foot on the continent. So Juneteenth is another reminder to know what that journey has been, to understand the complications of systematic racism, from the Jim Crow laws to all of those, how they built and created this complex structure that views you as a Black man, whether you're African, Afro-Caribbean, or a Black American, the same. So that's what Juneteenth gives me the opportunity to peel those layers.
Yeah. I think we'll end here, unless you guys have more to say, but I want to say, research your history about Juneteenth. It's complex, it's fascinating, it's important. Research the history of a lot of institutions in this country, like the police,
We even should have
Research
started with
that,
that.
right? Research the history of them and why
Oink, oink.
and why Black people in this country still struggle with that institution, right?
Yeah.
Research the history of HBCUs and their importance.
Facts.
Research everything Black and enlighten yourself. That's what I gotta say.
Definitely. Yeah.
This has been a great discussion, guys.
Yes,
I
sir.
think so.
Ramata, thank you for joining
Thank you,
us.
Thanks for
Ramata.
having me. It was nice.
This was great. Uncle E, we signing out.
Yes, sir.
Thank you guys for joining us. Till next time, stay dangerous. Peace.